Welcome back, Levelin Up Nation. This is your host, Brigham Blackham. I'm your success story strategist, and I have a very unique guest today. I'm so excited. She is an award-winning actress. She's a powerhouse when it comes to taking people from the page to the stage. You guys, see how you can direct your focus, how it's so important to place focus in the right places and give your audience something to look at, something to listen for, and some amazing calls to action. I'm so excited. Her name is Brenda Adelman. She's someone that I got to know because we were speaking at the same conference. I was like, wow, she has a powerful experience, and she's all about transformative ways that she can help someone go from the page to the stage. So Brenda, welcome to the call. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hello.
Looking amazing. Happy New Year. First podcast of the new year. So good.
Seriously, so good.
So stoked to have you on today. Now, I know you have done your own show. You've spoken across the country. Will you talk to us about what it takes first to not only deal with some of the trauma you've done in your past, because that's what your story deals with, but how you've been able to use that to propel your story and to get it out to more people?
Yeah, a lot of my frameworks have to do with healing from our stories so that we can be the best, baddest, boldest, unapologetic storyteller, be our best self so that we can really make an impact. You know, for me, I had to really, I had no idea I was going to be sharing my personal story. I'll just get to the chase. My father, who I adored, shot and killed my mother, who was my best friend. And then within a month moved in with and married my aunt, my mother's sister. So that was a big story to live through and something that took me down for several years. And actually, it was getting back into an acting class about a year after my mother's death that in some ways really saved my life, because through the characters I played, I was able to feel something again instead of being shut off. I could be angry where Brenda, couldn't be angry or didn't know how to be angry or was afraid to be angry because I thought I would lose it. And then it was in that top acting class in LA that there was something called a personal monologue a few years later, where it was about getting on stage and not hiding behind characters, but being yourself. And there was this deep inner guidance. It really, I felt it was a God experience that was like, get your ass on stage, tell your story, be yourself, stop hiding, without any thought that this would be a one-woman show that I've performed all over the world. It was really for healing and self-expression. And I was shocked at the response I got from the 100-person class because I was so filled with shame. I hadn't done any of my inner work then. But people were blown away, and they, a director wanted to work with me, and about 3-5 people came up to me and said something in them healed because of what I shared. And what I'll say, though, is that when I shared, I came from, 10 years or 8 years of acting experience already, knowing how to write a scene, knowing how to act. And there was humor, and there was depth, and there was, there was character work. And they're actually playing my father was extremely, extremely cathartic for me, because when you're playing a character, and you probably know this, you cannot play yourself, your character that you're playing as a villain. And so there was an end to my compassion for my father who did this heinous crime by playing him and understanding he's not just that one thing, he's everything. And so how did it go from an exercise in an acting class to now being the critically acclaimed show that it is? And I've gotten keynotes and really turned it into a business. Let me think for a second. What happened was the director wanted to work with me, and then I had this impulse where I just wanted to share. So I started going on doing open mics and getting really great responses. And even when and then I had a director who wanted to work with me and produce me. And it was something like contagious. I feel like for people watching, if you have a story and something inside you that you're exploring yourself, you're not just doing it as a victim. You're like, I want to feel better. Like the first version of my show was about, will I ever love and trust again? So I had a director in LA who also had a theater. She produced the show. She helped me develop it. And because it was something passionate. It was something everybody could use. So that's kind of how it started. I did not get paid for that first production, but she worked with me as a director for like 5 weeks. So she made the door. So, it is good to have an energy exchange. I think I made my first money in the second production of the show. And then when I really realized I could make some money on it, oh gosh, so many years ago now, it was, I went from making like $100 a week if I do the show, and the producers were making a lot more, to realizing I had something. There were a couple of things. I think once I was invited to go speak at a women's group, so get your pitch down, and I think I made $100 to go to $100 in lunch for like just a few minutes. I'm like, there's something here, and then I was paid $150 to do 10 minutes at a training for domestic violence. So again, it's about like finding who your people are. People in the domestic violence community wanted to hear how I was able to be celebrating life and trusting and things like that. So it was like one thing led to another. And I will say, for me, the first time I put the show up for that 5-week run in LA, people laughed, people cried, and I was absolutely miserable because I hadn't done the inner work. So I would go home and still be like, but, I'm still not talking to my father, and he's not told me what the truth is. So I went and got a master's degree in spiritual psychology. And that was where I learned how to not be a victim anymore and to really thrive because what happened. And so yeah, it was constantly saying yes to the opportunities. And then after I finished my master's, I made the decision from a self-honoring place to take my dad to court for wrongful death. And when I did that, I rewrote the ending of my show, and it was no longer will I ever trust and love again, but it became about the power of forgiveness. So I know there's a lot there, and there's more, but it's a lot.
Oh, I know you've got so much experience that I think it's so wonderful to see how you've traveled from that, oh, will I ever love again, to now that I can forgive, I can help you learn how to forgive as well.
Exactly.
That's empowering, taking someone from not just, hey, I can trust you, but I forgive you wholeheartedly.
Well,
that's surrendering in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I never trusted him again. Let me point out, I trusted myself to make wise decisions and know who should be in my life. The reason why I say that is because he never took responsibility, never showed remorse. But I trusted myself to have healthy boundaries so I could invite other people into my life who I could take chances on. But I forgave him to the core of my being. I also never saw him again because when I took him to court for wrongful death, he disappeared. But like I said, it was from self-honor. It wasn't like revenge. So when he didn't show up for court and he skipped town and things like that, it was great that I did it from self-honor versus why, and that thing so many people live in. Like, it's not fair. Life's not fair. I learned that, but I can forgive myself. I can love myself. I can trust myself, and I can forgive others, meaning that I no longer was taken down during my days if I thought about my father and he wasn't the man I wanted him to be.
Wow. I mean, that takes a lot of courage to really put yourself out there, share your story, and then not just let your story be where it is, but take it to that next level and be willing to forgive, and then also be able to make this something that is transformative for other people as well. So thanks for being vulnerable enough to share your story. I love hearing amazing people that are not just having a great story, but willing to share it and then help other people share their story too.
Yeah. Aren't you? You're probably like that too. Once you've lived through something or you've found an answer or a key, it's almost not right to not share it with other people. That's why I will continue sharing it on stages like this forever, because I absolutely know that I can save someone's life. Someone will hear it and they will either say, wow, my story is much worse than hers. I better, I have an opportunity to forgive, or they'll be inspired and write their own story and say, oh, I need to share this now. If she could get on stage, maybe I could get on stage.
Beautiful. Now, one of the things that pulled me to you as far as a director was how you're able to take people from the page to the stage. I'm in the same realm, and I think you do such a wonderful job. Tell us about what it's like to take someone from, hey, I'm a little shy, I'm not willing to interact in a way that an audience would want to listen to their story, to be able to put on a unique production, to share their story in almost like a one woman or one man show capacity. I love that. So let's hear how you do that.
It's so amazing. And so I teach I teach and coach award-winning speakers and performers who want to get to the next level, really unleash their talent and their soul really on stage. And then I help entrepreneurs who have never stepped on stage, but they have a story. Some of the actors have had stories for decades. I think with me, because I'm so vocal about the nature of what happened, my father shot and killed my mother, I am honored. And I've been a coach, a life coach, before I focused on storytelling and stage work in 2014. I've been a life coach since 2007. And so I have the honor of people coming to me who not only have they had this thought of telling a story for so long, but they usually have a lot of shame and secrets and guilt around things that have happened in their life. And so I create a space where it's really safe. And I am not scared of what someone is going through because I've been through the depths of it all. Like in the master's program, I really learned, because I also volunteered there for several years, how to hold a space for people who are going through this kind of stuff. So we're talking about child sexual abuse, torture, rape. They're not all like this, but I have people who are so incredibly resilient. It makes me cry because I always say it's like they break my heart when I first talk to them, and then my heart gets broken open because my process is very healing. It's about, you don't have to share everything. You can just share a moment from what happened to you. Like I had one client whose daughter ended up dying in her early 20s, but she came to me because she was a lawyer. She had a talk set up to talk to police cadets about how they need to handle domestic violence when they come to the door, because her and her daughter were held at gunpoint by her ex-husband. So she came to me, not an actor, but she had this important story. She wanted to help people. And so we were able to really put a presentation together, slideshows too, that was structured, powerful, personal. And I think there was like one moment of it where I had her act out just a piece between her ex-husband and her. And it was riveting. She got an invitation to do 5 more speaking engagements after that. So what I do is I hold a space for magic. I also have several clients who are like, well, I can't talk about this family member because, and it's always because they're stuck in the role of who they were when they were growing up. Because I've been through it all. That's how I was with my father. I was afraid to confront him at first because I'm the girl, I'm his little girl. So it's letting them write these great scenes, knowing they don't have to put it on stage, but they could. So this one client I'm thinking about, she was already an actor. She had done a little bit of acting, and she was a speaker. And she had a sibling that was like such a great character, like really funny. Because often in our head, in certain cases, we think we can't share something or that we're vilifying someone, but I don't teach people to vilify. So I said, just write out the character. Her sibling was so freaking funny. And so I was like, you don't have to share it in public, but she went on to perform all over the States and in Canada. And then she took her show back to her home state. Her brother came to see it, and her niece and nephew. She didn't have to do that, right? You don't have to have the person see you. And her brother at first was a little, not because she vilified him, because she didn't. She just told the truth. But her niece and nephew, she said, came over to her after and just hugged her because someone was telling the truth about how people are versus, holding secrets. So it's different with every person, but I really feel like all those years of me being in acting classes, and then all my over 10,000 hours of stages, performing from 4 people on a, Wednesday night in Hollywood during rush hour to 700 people at the biggest Jewish theater in the States, allows me to know not only how to perform for myself, how to bring intimacy or something, that intimacy within a big forum as well, but also I know how to help people with all the challenges they have along the road and all the fears and all the, it's the energetic, it's filling up the space, it's healing yourself so that you are solid when you're on stage, that you're solid so that you can play the victim, but not be the victim. You can play the villain, but not be the villain. Like that.
I think that's really important. Whenever you're stepping into any character, you have to see them as how they see themselves.
Right.
You know, one of the things one of my acting coaches taught me early on is if you don't really truly understand what they want and play it the way that they did in those given circumstances, you're not being truthful to the character. You're being a caricature, and that's not how you get emotional resonance. That's not how you get vulnerability. So let's talk about when you're directing someone to place focus, to really make sure that they aren't spread out too thin, but they're saying this is the exact moment, or this is the thing that you need to highlight. What are some of those ways that you've been able to help people get into the right focus at the right moments? Because people have thousands and tens of thousands of hours of things they could say.
Yeah.
Not everything is important, though. Like, we don't need to know that you went to the bathroom right after this. You're like, no, wait a second. I need to make sure that I'm placing focus on the things that are the highlights. So tell us how you craft that. How do you make sure that you're finding those
I learned the
turning
hard
points and
way
things
on stage in front of critics how to do this. So I learned things viscerally about how to not be repetitive, what's really important. But I put it all down into a process. I've directed 200 and let's say 30 people. So I have a framework. I actually created my first course in 2014. End of 2014, I launched it, which is my framework. But to make a long story short, it is helping my clients look at their life in themes. What are the main themes of their life? And then picking stories that fall into two of those themes. So for example, the first time I did my show, the themes were, the themes were around self-abandonment. And I took different stages from my life. So I remember a story from when I was around 4 or 5, one when I was 15, and then when my mother died. So I helped them identify 3 to 4 stories in a theme so that it really is, that's what your life has been about. And then I do a secondary theme. So for me, and now the theme is about forgiveness, which of course that's at the end of the show. So a lot of the show is about not being forgiving, right? Because that's more dramatic than a whole show on forgiveness. That would be a talk. Still not so dramatic, but so you want to also put the drama in there. I have an interesting story about that. Let me just write down about compassion for that. And then the secondary storyline is another theme, and mine is about a coming of age, and it allows me to have that second theme be about humor. So it comes in and I had a funny, tragic losing of my virginity. It became funny. It's a really funny scene in my show, but it was tragic when I first did it because I had unhealed stuff around it. And then I wrote it and healed it and put it up. And now it's one of the funniest scenes in my show. But it's a coming of age story, going to Europe and finding myself. But I would always tie it back to the main story of my parents. And then the story, this could be helpful for your audience as well, is that I had a client who was actually a forgiveness client. This was years ago. And she, after us working together about 2 years, she's like, I think I want to speak, which of course, that's why she was probably attracted to me as her coach. But she told me she gave a talk about compassion. And she said, people loved it. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, did you tell them what you'd been through? Because in her case, she had a stroke in her 20s. And she was a very successful businesswoman when we were working together. But she had to relearn to walk and all this stuff. So I'm like, well, did you put that in there? And she's like, no. And I was like, here's the thing. If you continue speaking, if you talk about something broadly where you're not giving your particular story that can make an impact and inspire people, people will say, thank you, I feel good, but they will not remember you and they will not hire you. So you need to, that's an example of if you have an inkling of maybe I should share this, or I got to compassion because of this, share it, you know?
Absolutely. That's making sure that you're caring enough about your audience to not just give them the feel goods. Anybody
Yes.
can use ChatGPT to get the feel goods, right? You can
I
get that
suppose
general
robustly.
framework, right?
Yeah.
The little framework there, but making sure that you go deep. A robot will
Yeah.
never replace you as far as your emotional quality and who your personal story is. That's why it's so important to have a great storytelling coach, a great director, so that you can pull out those moments. So when you are looking for,
Well, hold on,
oh,
because
yeah, go ahead.
GPT cannot correct you. Not really.
Nope.
Not when you're sharing your story, because they don't have everything inside that you're not willing to put out yet. Yeah. So they can't ask those questions. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like if you squeeze an orange, you're going to get orange juice out. But if you are not willing to actually go there and squeeze that orange, metaphorically, you
Yeah.
will not ever have that juice. Nobody will know how sweet your
Exactly. I love
story can
that.
be. So there's a great analogy for you guys. Now, when you thinking about which moments, you said you start off with the main theme, you have 3 or 4 stories, and you have a secondary theme. How did you end up arriving at that framework? Because I think that's a brilliant way to compile somebody's story. What was that process like for you?
Oh my gosh, this is a long time ago, because I that course was in 2014. But let me think for a second. I really don't remember. I think a lot.
That's okay.
I work very intuitively. It's not like I went into Chat GPT or I took a formula. Um, it was based on what I had done.
Mhm.
I know that I had read Julia Cameron's books, The Artist's Way, and a couple of her other books. I took several writing classes at UCLA, and with a working screenwriter. Um, I had taken so many writing classes, and then also so many acting classes over the years, that I just kind of like I knew about structure because of that.
Mhm.
So that kind of came in there. I think, wasn't there something with Lady Gaga and Madonna one time, because one of Lady Gaga's songs was very similar to a Madonna um, rhythm, but she came from hearing all of that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same thing. Like I took so many classes because I was writing my memoir, which I had never finished, and I wrote another book, and then I started exploring playwriting, and then I probably studied my script and looked at
Mhm.
what was in there. That's probably what happened, because I had a lot of success with my show and with people really complimenting my script.
That makes sense. So it's not just one thing is what I'm hearing. The more diverse your experiences are, it's almost like you can see the matrix. You can start to say, well, this is the pattern I'm recognizing. I'm recognizing it here and here and here. And then eventually you codify it. You put it down
Yeah,
on paper and you say, this is my philosophy.
and then I
Let's
started.
test it. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what it did. I tested it with my first clients, and it worked for every single one of them. Like every single
Nice.
one of them came out with something different. And I'm sure over the years I refined, well, it was there. The foundation was there, and then I just got more quick at helping my clients, and seeing where things were going. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
why I think it's, in some ways, these big group programs with, like, I'm going to be your storyteller, learn this story and you're going to be a 6-figure success. They don't work, because you're pointing out something really great here. Like, I have my show, but I have all this other diverse experience on stages and classes, where I think a lot of maybe these business coaches, because I have clients that hire me after going into these big programs,
Mhm.
they're getting a formula that's a good formula to start with. But what they don't have with AI, with everything else, they don't have that experience that a director, a teacher can share with you and give to you personally. Yeah.
And that's beautiful. When you're coming from an experiential base, you can say, this is my experience rather than this is what I read about. Here's my
Yeah.
understanding of something. Very different experience. So I love that you are bringing in not just what classes you've gone through, what mentors you've been around, what plays you've seen. It's all of that experience. And he said, this is what I'm recognizing. Here's the pattern.
Yeah, and
I'm
my
all
mother
about
took
finding
me to
great patterns.
Broadway shows from the time I was like 3 years old. So I was just really lucky too, like lucky or synchronistic or something that I had that kind of. Oh,
We have a visitor. This is my daughter. Say hi. Hi. Okay. Going over
Hi.
there. We're in the middle of a podcast. That's all right. Well, I love happy little interruptions. Oh, she's eventually going to be a host. You want to go to her? That's awesome. All right, well, she's going to join us for another moment. Sorry. This is part of the fun of working at home, though. I mean, that's
of course.
That's Here's my other daughter. Hi.
Great.
You want to say hi to Brenda? This is part of it. Happy little interruptions. I love it.
Awesome.
You're so silly. Okay. All right. Here's one thing that I actually want to hear your take on. Every time you are directing a production or you're directing some type of speech, there will be moments where there's muddiness or it's not as clear. Let's hear your take on why placing focus at the right moments is so crucial. Because directing focus isn't just about saying, hey, do this moment. There are moments and beats within a story. And let's have you go there for just a second. I'm going to highlight you for a moment.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, if it's muddy, I really feel like I just ask questions. I ask different questions. So here's an example. It's not directing for the stage, but it was helping an entrepreneur find their story for their business story, for videos and for interviews. So I was in a group training, and this woman was someone who she had an active what is it, like she sold shoes for working out and clothes for working out, activewear and stuff like that. She was in her early 20s, and she's like, I just don't have a story, I just don't have a business story that's interesting. And so I said, and here's the thing, sometimes people get too like, oh, it must be this business story. Yes, you have your business story, but it's your personal story that's going to have you be memorable, and people be like, oh, well, that person sells activewear too. That person does, but I remember you. That's why I'm going to hire you. And it was just an intuitive thing. I asked her if she'd ever been in love. I don't even know why. She's a runner too, and she said no. I'm like, never? And she's like, well, I was in high school. I'm like, well, what happened? And she said, well, he cheated on me, and it was devastating. So I asked her more about it, and she said that she started running at that time. Well, bingo, right there. I'm like, well, so you had this devastating betrayal. You started running, and now you lead running groups for people, and you sell activewear. That is your story. So I think it's really just asking it's like really listening for behind what people are saying.
I think that's a great point. It's not just what is being said or how they've shown up and you're seeing the after version. We want to see a portion of how it came to be.
Yeah.
What were those pinch points or those turning points that allowed someone to make that decision? Because one of the things I learned as an actor is it's not so much about what your thought process is. It's about how did you arrive at that choice? It's your choices that matter, not just what you're thinking about. Because your audience can't actually know what you're thinking about. You can process it, but I had a director that said, well, if you get too internal as an actor, it's visual masturbation is what he called it. He called it. I was like,
and
wow.
The screen won't even see it.
You can't.
Because sometimes you're thinking something, this is for film stuff. You're thinking something, and then you have to actually think or imagine something else so that it comes across. I remember I took a face acting class once, and I was shocked at that because I was thinking something so intense that I thought people could get it and they couldn't. Yeah, so it's behavior. It's choices through behavior.
Sorry, I've got my little distractions. They're perfect.
Just like life.
Yeah, go ahead. You can have it. That's part of life. That's it.
Well, this is good. If for anybody who does live speaking or speaking on stages, one of the reasons you might not do it or you want to is because you're like, but I can't control the room. There you go.
There you go.
Sometimes you can't control the room. I've had lights go down. I've been out of dishes on me. I've had someone drop dishes. You got to be in the moment.
Yeah, that reminds, in high school, I even had one time where I was supposed to have a bottle that I opened up and then pour it. And all the dialogue for like half of the page was about how I poured out this bottle. And it was so tight that I couldn't open it. And I ended up cutting myself. And I was like, I'm just going to pretend like I did this. And it was
I was once
holding
on stage in a show. And the scene before I came out, the person that I was kind of, someone I had a crush on, I think, he would start choking. He was eating a sandwich every night. And then all of a sudden I'm waiting to go out and he's, I'm like, oh my God, but there was water there. So yeah, the things that can go wrong, Murphy's Law can, but then that's why people have to get on stage. And that's the thing I help my clients, some who have thought about getting on stages for decades, but mostly it's on average like 5 years, get on stage within 2-3 months, because you got to get to that level. You got to do that. You got to get rid of the fear and hiding. And even in class, there's a comfort level in class. It's really important to share your story in front of people who don't know you, whether it's virtually or on stage, but also virtually. A lot of people started speaking virtually. There was a lower access to speaking virtually during the pandemic. And now there's a time where they're like, they want to speak on stages, but they don't have the tools. So that's why this is a good time for us to be teaching people how to book those stages, and not just book them, book your TEDx, but know how to fill a space, because it's very different than doing it virtually.
This is one of the things I think is really important. Is it's not just about performance. It's about how are you developing and how are you getting your story out there. One, like, you can share your story, but are you sharing your story only for you, or are you sharing your story and those moments that are for other people? A lot of times, where you place your focus and how you focus that story, if it is very you-centric, your audience is not going to resonate with it.
I have a little different.
Oh, let's hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts, and then I can.
That's very story brand, right?
Yeah.
Which there's great stuff, of course. I think it's a balancing act, and I do think that there's something. I think it's actually easier for people to get up and present, at least when they start, by making it about themselves, because the more you go into the details about yourself, it actually becomes about other people.
Yeah.
So that's why the theme is important. The theme opens it up to other people. Like, maybe someone hasn't had their father kill their mother, but they have been betrayed. That's the theme. So I put different stories in there, and then the people resonate themselves. Maybe someone doesn't know how to forgive, but because I forgive, and I have in my one woman show, I have a ritual I perform, what happened to me. So that's how it goes from not being general to specific. You know what I'm saying? And then it becomes about someone else. So it's a fine line. Because it's the same thing with writing a book. You really can't write a book for. This is my contrarian view, I guess. You can't write a book for someone else and it be incredible. The greatest time write it for themselves, and then it becomes a gift for other people. So it's not that you're not looking. You are going to look at, well, who's this message going to resonate with and stuff like that. But I really feel like, actually, if you focus on you, however, it's not you, like that thing you said before, like, me, and I'm gonna, this is for me to feel good. But in some ways, it is for you to feel good, because if you elevate this way, you're also not going to be vilifying people. Not really. You just can't really for a moment if you vilify somebody. But it'll be someone else. It'll be everyone's story also, if you're free of being a victim to your story. So
I love that. That's a great way to look at the details of your story. It does have to be emotionally tied to exactly what you were feeling in that moment. You have to live in the reality of those circumstances and go there. When I'm talking about having something for somebody else, I think that's where your themes came in. If it was only for you, you'd probably share just the points that it meant the most for you. I think you are being very selective of which stories are for that theme and how it's going to serve those people. Because otherwise you'd share everything that you possibly could.
That could be. I think everyone, I think people have different storytelling techniques. But that's where I guess storytelling for you would be doing the inner work. So you see everything clearly, but you're not putting everything on that stage. You really do need an outside eye to refine it. And one of the things I would say, like when I was writing it in the beginning, because I started writing so many years ago, I wrote it exactly how it happened in my life. So yes, if I'm putting it on stage like that, then it's just for me, not in this other elevated way that we're talking about. So for example, I did want to take my life probably 3 times after my mom died. And I always stage. And then I got feedback. And then I realized that, oh, okay, I need to be true to the essence of the story, not the letter of the law. Okay, I can combine things and I can switch time around and stuff like that. So that is a great story for the audience versus just for me. So also I had that going throughout. So then there wasn't a climax that then there was the end of the piece. It was like, here's the high point, here's the low point, here's the high point, here's the low point, which is not good storytelling.
Right. And if it's not building and it's not structured in a way that your audience can have that cathartic experience,
right,
you're not serving the audience. So I think you absolutely are doing this for your audience in a way that will allow them to connect emotionally with your story, not just have the story happen to them. You can bring him in here to me. That would be great. This is part of the interruptions. We're going to help people place focus on things that do matter. Because for me, family is extremely important. Here's my guy. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Say hello.
Hi.
At least he's not crying now, which is great.
Yeah. Hi. How are
you?
You?
Wave. They wave. Hi. He sometimes will wave.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, you got to smile. There you go. I found things, but I got interrupted there. So go ahead and rephrase what you're meaning.
We were saying that it is about the audience, but the way that you have it be about the audience is about going deep yourself. But it's not just about what you're feeling, because I do know people like this. Like I remember someone years ago, she did not hire me, but she said she had a 20-minute video on her website about her story. I was like, nobody is going to listen. They don't know you. They're landing there. And she needed her 20-minute, and that's okay. But that's that example of it's not about you. You can maybe send a 20, but it wasn't, I did watch it. It was not, it was scattered. Aunt Ida went to the store, it was all that stuff that I did. I make fun, but I did it in front of people and on stage, even with working with directors. So I got the honoring your audience enough to so that you get the skills and you edit and you find out from other people what is most important and what do they lean into. Like part of my process is, as you're developing your story, if you're just starting, and just depending on what you want to share, you lean into people when you're talking to them, tell them about it, see if they ask more questions, things like that.
I love that. What do they lean into? I think that's a great way to see, is my audience resonating with what I'm saying? Is this message actually landing? I had a moment years ago that I was playing baseball, and it's kind of a random story, but I was playing baseball, and this was one of those moments where I realized I absolutely have to make sure that the message that was sent is received. I had this great pitcher that I was warming up in the bullpen, and my coach, he said, "Hey, Brigham," and I went like this, "Hey, hold on," and I turned my head just for a moment towards my coach, and the pitcher did not see my gesture. They didn't hear that I was telling him to hold on. He pitched the ball and it hit me in the temple, knocked me out.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of those moments where I was like, I thought my message was received. But just because you send a message does not mean that it was received. It doesn't mean that somebody connects it.
Hours.
Oh my gosh.
With that, because then that's perception checking. So that's a good thing to point out as well. So as a director, I'm wanting to know that my client receives it, or if they have resistance there, or something else is going on.
Yeah, that's huge. So not just placing focus as a director, not just placing focus and saying this is where the moments are. It's making sure that it's landing for
really
your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes that's just how you say it. He's so excited to be here. But anyway, I appreciate you so much, Brenda. This was a wonderful conversation. And some great distractions as well.
A lot. I am on Instagram, LinkedIn, but I'm more on Facebook, and I have a private group called free group called Unforgettable Speaker Society. And I did want to offer your listeners, I have a handful of free storytelling activation sessions. They are worth $197. So if they're full, then you have to wait for them. But if you reach out to me, I will give you a link to sign up for one of these 30-minute sessions.
Wonderful. And you can check in the comments. We'll make sure you have that link in the comments on Facebook, and then also in the blog that will come out of this. So anyway, I appreciate you so much.
We'll hone in on your story, and also if anything's stopping you from telling it, so that by the end of the session you really are excited.
Thank you so much, Brenda, for the excellent overview of all the different things that you've done, how you've been able to tap into your story and help others as well. I love what you're doing. Continue to make it amazing. And you want to say goodbye, Ben? Say hi. Bye. See ya.
Bye, Ben. Bye, Brigham.
Bye. Take care. Thank you so much. And there you go. You got a wave. I love it.
Bye.
Perfect. Bye. Bye, guys. God bless. We'll see you.